Welcome to The Green Rush, a podcast about the intersection of cannabis, the capital markets, and culture. On a weekly basis, hosts Ann Donahoe and Louis Goldberg of KCSA Strategic Communications speak with the business leaders, financial experts, cultural icons, legislators, and generally interesting people moving the cannabis industry forward. This week, Louis and Ann are joined by show producer Nick Opich and KCSA's managing director Phil Carlson to round out a nice chat about what happened for legal cannabis in 2019 and what's likely to go down in 2020. We're now more than 100 episodes in here at The Green Rush and look forward to adding another 50 or so in the new year. And we could not have done that without you, our listeners. So thanks for being awesome. Now on to our conversation with Ann, Louis, Nick, and Phil.
And we are recording. Good stuff. Welcome to the 2019 wrap-up of the Green Rush podcast. I'm Louis Goldberg, and along with Ann Donahoe, we host this show that we think sits at the intersection of cannabis, the capital markets, and culture. Each week, we talk with some of the most interesting people pushing the cannabis industry forward, and 2019 has been quite the year. We've seen increases, massive increases in the sales of legal cannabis across the country, but we have also seen some serious slowdowns in the capital markets, the legislative and regulatory landscape, and the prospects for 2020 seem mixed from a political perspective, from a business perspective. And today, we are doing our Hostful episode. It's a wrap-up of 2020 and of looking forward to 2019. We are joined by Nick Opich, producer of The Green Rush, and by Phil Carlson, who heads up KCSA's Cannabis Investor Relations practice. So, Ann, what was the biggest story in 2019 that took you completely by surprise?
Oh, well, the story that I want to talk about didn't necessarily, well, I don't know, maybe it did take people by surprise, but we we're off of MJ Biz, and we were in one of the sessions there, and I thought that someone went through, it was actually the Ianthus folks, went through some of the deals that have happened or have not happened. I think the more interesting news is the deals that didn't happen. So we thought that 2019 would be the year of M&A and all this stuff. And there's a slide up there that, there's really only one deal that closed. And it was the MPX Ianthus deal. There, all of these deals are pending.
Cannex.
Oh, Forefront Cannex too. Yeah. I think they did this as I don't know how they ranked it here, but there were more deals that were. Oh, I'm also lying. Kronos and Lord Jones, but the fact that there are so many pending and repriced deals and other deals that have been terminated, I think are really interesting and kind of indicative of the really crappy market we saw.
And there are a bunch of deals that are either stuck up in the Hart-Scott-Rodino review, or we're seeing deals that have been walked away from, like the PharmaCann deal. Phil, I mean, there was Viero in Florida.
There's a lot of these deals that are still waiting to get done. You have like the Cresco Origin House deal that's still in flux. You have.
You think that'll get done?
I hope so. Personal reasons aside, but what else? Grassroots.
There's Grassroots and
Select,
Cura, and then there's Select and Cura. I mean, Curaleaf has been.
Well, the Curaleaf Acres deal actually didn't. I think that closed this morning, right? If I'm not wrong, I think that closed this morning. So
we are recording this on December 19th, so quite possibly. Do you have one of those Doc Brown time machines that lets you go forward and back?
I know, right? With the flux capacitor.
Yeah.
But for me, what I thought was mind blowing this year was like the vaping crisis. Like, who saw that coming out of left field, right? All this black market crap that's out there. It's certainly caught everybody by surprise, and a lot of these companies are taking it on the chin. But I think we're past that now. I think we've seen the bottom of that.
Really?
Illicit market.
Phil
vaping.
Carlson sees the bottom.
You're calling on the vaping crisis.
The vaping crisis, not.
I know.
I still don't. Agree
I think
with
we're
that.
getting. I think we're getting past that. So why do you not think that way?
Because the reality is that there isn't enough retail in all these different states. There isn't enough products for people to get their hands on. Like,
no, I'm talking about the crap that's out there on the street. Like
yeah, but it's still gonna get out
Yeah,
there.
but
There's
the
still,
black market in California is $9 billion, right?
yeah.
no better.
And that's just the illicit market in California is
Right.
huge, and then the illicit market
Everywhere.
in the Midwest, the East Coast, everywhere. It's people are going to get their hands on these products no matter what. People are going to put whatever they want in these products to be able to sell them more. It's not going to go away.
The profit
until,
incentive for the illicit market to use whatever they can is still there, right? And even in the legal markets like California, where the tax regime is messed up and where the incentive structures to get people from the gray and illicit market into the regulated market it's just too expensive, so they're going to continue to do what they're going to do, and until people realize two things: one, they can get safe, tested product in legal dispensaries, and that the prices in the legal dispensaries are equivalent or lower than the gray market, people are still going to buy shit that's going to get them sick.
Yeah, it's all going to be about price. If the price of legal products is going to be, through the roof because these companies are forced to pay all these taxes on stuff, like my friends aren't going to be going to the dispensaries to buy their cartridges and stuff. They're going to find
be talking to your friends.
So where do they go now? Are they down in Washington Square Park?
Yeah.
We got a WhatsApp group. We find our stuff. Don't worry about it.
Nick, let's stick with you for a second. Over the last 7-8 years, it seemed like there's been this inexorable march from a regulatory and legislative perspective towards adult use legalization passing everywhere. And there was the assumption that New York State and New Jersey would get it done this year, and they both shit the bed. We spoke with State Senator Liz Krueger a couple times over the last 2 years, and she was just all in on believing that New York would get it done in 2019. Governor Phil Murphy in New Jersey put tremendous political capital behind getting that state's, our state's legislation done, and now it's been kicked down the road to
the state vote.
The state vote next year
November,
in 2020.
Yeah. Far cry from that first 100 days for Phil Murphy.
Yeah. So do you think that this inexorable march of cannabis regulation has stopped, or is this just a hiccup in this process?
I think that the problem is that these legislators have, for so many years and for the longest time, run on these platforms that, they want to keep drugs off the street, they want to keep people healthy. But the reality is they don't know how to do that, and they don't know how to regulate this market that they've never seen before. And so now you have it where, yeah, it's great that New Jersey wants to, add a social responsibility component to this and try and give minorities these jobs. But, we still need to make incremental progress on this and actually get the market started, so that when these minorities that want to own these different types of businesses in these states, they actually have something to enter into. If it's not set up, if it's not functioning properly, and you put it all on them to have to build it, nothing's going to ever happen. And so, I think we're at this point where it's real easy for politicians to say that they're in favor of cannabis. We saw Cuomo do it last year, or do the governor's race. He said it because Cynthia Nixon put him on it.
Yeah.
And then what did he do in 2019? As Liz Krueger said, if he would have said one positive thing about that he was going to support the legislation, she was convinced that it was going to pass. He never did that, but he absolutely did it on the campaign trail for this term. Said he was going to support it, and then he didn't do anything about it. So,
Phil, you made mention to me this morning about what's going on at the federal level, that the Safe Banking Act looks like it's in trouble. What does that mean? What is it beyond that it's in trouble? I mean, you understand what's going on from a financial perspective in this market. So if safe banking dies, what happens to
It's
cannabis?
not necessarily dead, but
It's just mostly dead.
It's
On life support.
well, no, there's a lot of hoops to go through. I think it means that you're still going to see some of these. What's the right word? Awful deals, awful terms on some of these deals, these capital raises that are getting done. I see a lot of these guys some of these companies that wanted to go public are now going to have to postpone those plans even longer, just because it's easier for them to access capital in the private markets than it is to access in the the public capital market. So who knows? We thought there was going to be a ton of M&A in 1919. I think you're going to see even more in 2020 because
2019.
what?
No, 1919. Yes.
Did I say 1919?
100 years ago.
But that's okay.
Well, there's this movie coming out, 1917. I'm watching
that's
it,
amazing.
right?
We'll
Is it-
take
so-
that
We'll get
offline.
there. No,
but yeah.
we're going to get
Okay.
to it. I have some questions about what you guys are looking forward to just in mass media.
It looks really good. So maybe I had that on my mind. So
Hey, and look,
2019,
the guys
20
coming out of the World War I needed this for PTSD anyway. So
but 2020, you're going to see some of these publicly traded companies that can be bought for the price of a hot dog out there, and it's going to be, they're going to get
with or
gobbled up
without mustard?
with. 2019 was definitely challenging. Let's see what 2020 brings.
Well, let me stick with you for a second. So 2017, 2018, the cannabis stocks were going gangbusters, right? They had one direction, which was up, and that was a function of a lot of things. They were story stocks. They had access to easy capital. The growth prospects were amazing. We had all of these states coming online. Everybody was just talking about cannabis, and then March, April of this year happened, and I'm not sure what happened in March or April, but since then, cannabis stocks have been on kind of an inexorable march down. The general markets are up massively this year, 25%, but the cannabis markets are off 60 or 70%. What the hell happened?
Capital crunch. People did not have access to easy money. That's why these rip your face off deals have been happening throughout the year. And it's going to continue that way until we can find some sort of federal legislation that makes it easier for these guys to access cheaper money. And is it going to happen anytime soon? If I had a crystal ball, I would be a very wealthy man. But I don't know who knows what's going to happen over the next 6 months. But I think as you see some of these bigger companies start putting out numbers in Q1 and Q2, and they're looking more and more positive, I think hopefully it starts to sway in our favor, and we can see some of these stocks start to rise, and more institutions will come in here and start buying some of these bigger names. But I think it's going to take some time. We need some of these bigger guys to actually start showing some real numbers, and then I think with M&A coming out and with the M&A that's going to happen in 2020.
Is that a good thing? Do you guys think that the big companies merging or bigger companies buying brands is good for the consumer, it's good for the industry, or is it just a way for them to pad their balance sheets and show some sort of forward progress to the stock markets, to the capital markets, to the analyst community? Just anybody.
I don't know. I feel like isn't it kind of also a sign of a healthy capital environment? Like not necessarily healthy in that, we have the cannabis industry has access to channels that other companies, take that back. Other companies have access to capital that the cannabis markets don't necessarily do. But I feel like isn't it more of a democratic process that, these companies are kind of shaking out, finding out who wants to buy who. I feel like it's more of a it's a healthy, we'll look back on this and think that this was probably healthy because there are probably some real dogs out there.
The strong players are going to stay.
Yeah,
the weak guys are
and
going to get kicked to the curb.
This is kind of part of the shakeout.
But is M&A
Right?
part of that? I mean,
I think so.
Yes, I do. It's what are these guys going to do? They run out of money and then they can't file for bankruptcy.
Nope.
So they're going to go
sell themselves off for parts,
probably just
right?
go away. So I think it's better
So do
for
you
the
want to
M&A.
talk about a little bit about why they can't file for bankruptcy?
I'm happy to. I mean, if you had listened, to our loyal listeners who are listened to every episode, we had Michael Schwam on from Dwayne Morris a couple weeks ago, and he walked it through. But the fundamental issue is because cannabis is still federally illegal, bankruptcy is a federal process, and you can't file in federal bankruptcy court for protection. I as you guys all know, I think about the macro trends that are impacting on the cannabis industry a lot, and I've talked about it on our podcast. I've talked about it on some other people's podcasts. More importantly, I've talked to our clients, to reporters and analysts. this capital crunch is a bad thing, not only for these companies from a public markets perspective, but it costs a lot of money to build out a vertically integrated cannabis company on a state-by-state basis. This week we published our interview with the guys from Redbird, from Bill Thurman from Redbird, and Redbird is just absolutely killing it in Oklahoma. Most of the other MSOs, the big MSOs, have licenses in Oklahoma, and they're not building out their footprint in that state, even though there is a massive potential there. The attraction is huge. The state has reciprocity with Texas. So if you get if you have a medical card in Texas, you can cross the border into Oklahoma and get THC product that you can't get in that state. But because they don't have the money to actually build out a grow, to build out a processing facility, to build out dispensaries, it's limiting patient access to product, it's limiting adult use states access to product, and it's limiting their ability to grow top line. So this capital crunch really is bad for everybody, not just for the companies and the shareholders in these companies. It's bad for the actual cannabis consumer, whether you're a medical consumer or adult use consumer. And that's the thing that has been really like, how do we get out of this? It seems like this vicious cycle that we're going to continue to spin down until there's some sort of regulatory change, right? I had a debate 2 months ago with what's Adam's last name from Oregon, who's Craft Cannabis Alliance, Adam Smith from the Craft Cannabis Alliance, about interstate commerce. And I was
definitely worth a listen. Please go back and listen to that.
Yeah, that was on Marijuana Today. I still believe that this is years away. He and I have a bet. He thinks it's going to happen next year. I think it's 3 to 5 years that he thinks that interstate commerce passes in 2020.
I could see that. I could see interstate commerce happening before any kind of like banking legislation.
Federally, it has to be done at the federal level, right? Interstate commerce is
or maybe it's not a real law, but something similar to like the Cole memo, where it's like the federal government's not going to intervene if the states like Oregon and Oklahoma want to create a deal where they can,
if that happens, I owe Adam $1, right?
I was there. I saw the bet.
You only bet $1.
That's all he wanted. That's all he wanted.
Phil missing Vegas already.
Phil doesn't need to be in Vegas to place a bet. I can promise you on that. But until there's these regulatory changes, these companies, we are all in this kind of netherworld of it's happening, it's moving forward. I keep saying that what happened today was more people bought legal weed than did yesterday. The same thing will happen tomorrow, and that's for the foreseeable future because the illicit market is still 3 to 4 times the size of the legal market. And as more stores open up and more states come online, more people will buy legally. But it's slower than I think any of us expected from a footprint perspective. And you look at Massachusetts.
Look at Canada. Ontario's what,
show.
25, right? And so just think of this.
25% of the country or something?
Well, no,
it's more than that.
Isn't it like 25 dispensaries across Ontario total?
Legal.
Right? That are open.
Yes.
And there's like 4 or I know 2 that are in downtown Toronto, the Honey Pot and the Nova place, but I there may be 5.
Tokyo Smoke. Or,
I don't know
You're
if
talking
they're
about one of a major North American city that
this
has
is
5
Toronto.
legal dispensaries, right?
In Stillwell, Oklahoma, there are 4,500 people in this town. There are 5 dispensaries open in this town. Now, and it's in an economically depressed area, and they have 5 dispensaries, and they can't keep stuff on the shelves. Like I don't know why Canada can't get their shit together. It's mind blowing. Alberta is doing much better than all the other provinces. Fire and Flower are doing well up there, but it's like I don't understand why these guys just can't.
It takes bold political leadership. You need to have somebody that actually wants to champion it and isn't doing it just for the votes. I mean, that's what largely, I think, the last 2 decades.
They were shipping it through the mail. Like, who's
Shopify.
the idiot who put all this stuff together up there?
You buy
You
it.
had to put it through the mail. Like,
It's unbelievable. I mean, you listen.
When's our Christmas party again? What time does it start?
Exactly. So something momentous happened yesterday, which was the president was impeached. What role, if any, does this play in 2020 when it comes to cannabis policy?
I think it gets lost. I mean, I would love to see, we've talked about this before. Chris Crane has written about it before, that this could, the Democrats have not been traditionally great on this issue.
No, they've been traditionally great on this issue.
No,
They just
but
haven't
if you
been...
go back, well, then why isn't it done? Why wasn't it done under the Obama administration? So they haven't been that great.
Because there's no political capital behind it.
And so I don't know that necessarily changes. And I think everyone is going to be so distracted and I don't know.
Yeah, I agree. Legislation's going to be at a standstill next year. Nothing's going to get through the Senate that Mitch McConnell doesn't already
Moscow
support.
Mitch.
Yeah, he's not going to bring up anything for a vote that isn't already.
I love Phil's eye rolls when I say
I'm
shit
gonna
like
let you guys over here.
Yeah.
talk
You're gonna
about
let the
this,
lefties talk
yeah,
and
let the lefties talk over here.
That's
Yeah.
okay.
And right now, like the Republican side, seeing it as this is something that the Democratic presidential candidates are talking about, they want to do it, and so they're not gonna support it. If it's something that Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren think can provide them political capital, they're gonna ignore it. They're gonna shut it down, and they're gonna talk about how we need to do more research. They're gonna keep punting the football.
Do you really think those two stand a chance? Actually, never mind. Let's move on to the next question. I don't want to get into this right now.
And earlier this year, we recorded our 100th episode, which for me is a big deal. It means a lot to me. When you came up with the idea, and just full disclosure, the idea behind the Green Rush was Ann's.
Well, it wasn't this. It evolved to this. It was like a seed of a...
But the idea of doing a podcast was yours.
And it was supposed to be just you. And I was supposed to be behind the scenes.
Yes, which I'm glad that it's not
And
just
the EP.
me. Yes.
I would have been very happy with.
But, we've now passed 100,000 downloads. It's pretty freaking amazing.
Yay!
I can talk about what this has meant to me, but what has 2 years of recording this podcast meant to you?
It's been amazing, and I think, like I said, I wasn't supposed to be on the mic with you. You kind
I'm
of
not supposed to be working
forced
today.
it, yeah, and it made me get out of my comfort zone because I'm a very happy behind the scenes player. I don't, I'm a little on the shy side, I think, sometimes. So this is definitely a new skill set for me.
You do PR for a living.
I know, but my clients should shine, not me. And so this has been definitely, it's been new for me. It's made me grow, I think, as a professional. And I have a newfound respect for the reporters I work with on a daily basis.
Nick, you've been with us pretty much since the beginning on the show. What has been doing this meant to you? And Phil, I'm not going to ask you because you can go,
Phil's just he's our hired gun every once in a while. It's been great. It's been really well, just like being able to work closely with both of you guys. I work with you on like our regular teams all the time, so being able to do a fun thing that's just our focus project is a blast. But then it also gives us a lot of opportunity when we go to these different conferences to help support just KCSA, being able to speak with really interesting people. We got Mike Tyson on this year. Being able, one of my favorite episodes was when we spoke with Liz Kruger, being able to actually speak with these politicians and get their real perspectives on it. I'm like, okay, here's the actual conversations that we're having in the House about how this is going to get passed. That's amazing. We got to meet Earl Blumenauer this year when we were in when we went to
cool.
DC for the May event.
Tom Daschle, which we haven't played yet, but yeah.
Yeah, we spoke with him in Vegas this year, and so. Being able to do all this stuff, I'm a big political junkie. As much as it's depressing to talk about politics all the time, that's what I studied and it's what I originally wanted to do when I was getting into work. So being able to combine,
you do that with this job.
Yeah, and that's what I get to do now is cannabis policy, and that's what I have been trying to do since 2010. So, it's a lot of fun. I'm excited to do 100 more episodes with you guys. So.
Oh my god, that makes me so tired.
Yeah.
All right, Nick.
I was political science too.
What are you
Nick,
looking for?
meet Phil. Phil, meet Nick.
We've only been working together for 2 years.
Our office is right across from each other, but cool.
2019 was a challenging year, right? It has been for most people who are not in the industry. They don't understand what's going on. They just see, a store opened up and I can go in and buy a joint or an edible or something. I have a lot of hope for 2020 across the board in lots of different things, and I'm happy to talk about that. But what are you most looking forward to from a cannabis perspective in 2020?
I'm excited about watching what happens in Illinois and Michigan. I think those states are going to be really interesting, litmus tests for, okay, how does the cannabis market start to move east? As much as it's like, yeah, the Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Maryland markets are kind of doing okay when it comes to medical. Like, these are going to be the first, like, non-West Coast states to really fully integrate legalized cannabis. And so we've seen a lot of excitement already. Michigan's already legal. Chicago, Illinois is going to go legal on January 1. Let's see how those operate in its first year. I think Illinois is going to be a nightmare just because of a lack of supply, lack of retailers and stuff. But give it 6 months.
Also, the limited number of dispensary licenses.
Yeah. It's going to be tough there. But watching, like, how are these politicians, how are these businesses going to be adaptable to what the market's looking for? I think that's going to start providing, like, a clearer view. Okay, when New York and New Jersey start going legal, here's like a model that they can follow without having to fall into like the same traps that like Oregon and Nevada did.
Phil, what are you most looking forward to in the coming year?
My virtual conference on January 9th. You can go to virtualinvestorconferences.com. We have a great roster already lined up.
Plugs is for the end, Phil.
Yes.
No, obviously Illinois and Michigan. Michigan is already off and running, but Illinois for sure, and then New Jersey. I live in
Massachusetts. Look, Massachusetts is going to actually come online.
It's already online, but I'm saying stuff
there's
that's
like 12 stores or something open.
Yeah, but when we were at the Cowan conference, we could have taken the train and been at a dispensary in 25 minutes. So it's not. You can go to them in Massachusetts, but New Jersey, I really want to see what happens. Given the fact that I live in the state, so does Lou. That takes everybody else, right? New York, Connecticut, Pennsylvania,
Ohio, everybody.
I think
either
this
New York
is the
or
domino.
New Jersey goes, it is the domino that finishes it off. And Chris Lautlicker, who is a friend of ours and is one of the founders of SSDP, he thinks that we can get enough states this year to pass that it will force a federal change. We sit at the intersection of cannabis, the capital markets, and culture. Let's talk culture for a second. Phil, what's in your stocking stuffer, or what's in your stocking from Cannabis Santa this year?
Does it have to be cannabis? Because I have tickets to Star Wars tomorrow.
Well, as long as you take a chiller beforehand, you're good to go.
No, you want to remember it.
But seriously, like, is there a product? Is there something that you haven't tried in cannabis that you're looking forward to trying next year?
Mom, turn this off.
I'll answer
Can
this.
we talk about Lewis's dabbing?
Oh my God!
Extravaganza.
So when you call my phone, I have a picture of you that shows up. It's great.
Of me at the MJ Biz. Oh, great! Thank you. Thanks, Ann.
You're welcome.
I actually want to try one of the drinks. Right? Everybody's been talking this year. We've talked with Sebastian. No, I haven't. But we've talked to the guys from Hexo. We've talked to a lot of other people who are really all in on cannabis drinks, and I'm dubious. Like, I'm just
Valens, their technology, their source technology is phenomenal.
Right.
It's every sip that you have is this. It's the same amount of THC across the entire bottle. So it's.
How did that make you how did it hit you different than like an edible would hit you?
So the Lagunitas one that I had, I have not had the one using the source technology, but the Lagunitas one, it tells you there's 10 milligrams across the whole thing. So I would drink like a third of it at a time. I'm
Bullshit.
I'm not kidding. That's what I would do, because I tried it with my wife when we were in Napa, and I'm like, I drank a third of it, and I'm like, oh, this isn't hitting me yet. You know how it is. Another third. I'm like, all right, hon, before we head to the winery, let me finish this off.
Just shotgun one real quick.
But it was very light, very mild. It was, it's not like that stuff that we had in Denver where everything sat at the end. Remember that ginger ale?
Oh, that was horrible.
It was terrible. It was so bad.
That was
Well,
horrible.
do you think that because there's a lot of people that are all on this beverage like bandwagon, and
Canada
I just
loves
don't
it.
see,
The U.S., I don't know.
because I just don't see socially like you're saying you're sitting back relaxing, but you're making sure you're drinking a third of your drink.
But
like,
that's
that's
what the
not
Lagunitas
how
one.
you consume.
You're right.
Anything.
like a social, right? Like I'm not going to drink my glass of wine tonight and be like, I'm only having a third for the first hour to see how it hits me. It's just functionally a different thing. Like, and I'm not sure that I see the big beverage boom happening in cannabis.
I agree with you. I think I just don't get it, but I want to try it.
Yeah.
I want to be.
Yeah.
I want to see if there's the.
Someone send us some.
I disagree. I think that you're going to see more people gravitate towards that. Listen, if you're out and you're having 8 drinks in a night over like a 6-hour span, just say you're out with your
Party
girlfriend.
Phil.
Yeah.
So I'm just.
Well,
I'm just going off what Nick was doing in Vegas. Just going off what Nick was doing in Vegas. But I think you wake up with a nasty hangover. With these,
I know you up with a hangover after 2 or 3. So
with these cannabis drinks, you don't end up with that. So it's
But I think the learning curve is going to be huge. Like, how many people
Well, I
are you going to
agree.
get to be like?
Well, they are arguing that the onset is faster, right? I mean, that's what Valence talks about. That's what Hexer
Yes.
talks about. That's what Canopy and Constellation are talking about. That the onset is 5 to 10 minutes, similar to alcohol. So you won't consume what I did when I hosted the infused dinner a couple of years ago, where I literally face planted.
Just all the embarrassing stories for Lewis. Right?
Yeah, and I'm a open book, baby. I have no problem.
Yeah. So, is the purpose of the drinks though to actually like convince like regular users like us that have been either smoked cannabis or enjoy it through the edible form, or is it more going to be targeted towards people that have never really tried cannabis? It's going to be an introduction for them to do it without necessarily having to take a
Yeah,
gummy
like, I don't
or
see,
smoking. I
like
think that's who the
OGs
market is.
being like, I'm not going to smoke this joint. I'm going to have this.
I think the goal
Drink
is to make it
instead.
bigger market out there.
Well, it's
No,
not.
I
It's. I
understand
think
that,
it's
but
really also
You're
to
asking
make it.
people to make a big leap. There needs to be a layer of education that just isn't there right now.
It's to make it socially acceptable, right? It is socially acceptable to go into a bar and have a martini or a Moscow Mule or a beer or a glass of wine. And the goal, I think, is to make it similarly socially acceptable to go and have a cannabis drink, right? Cannabis is my intoxicant of choice. I don't like getting drunk. I hate being hungover. So I choose to eat an edible or smoke because it makes me feel good, and the next day I can get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and go exercise and not be hungover, right? That's fine.
You can stop lying about the exercising, dude. All right.
Oh, dude. Dude, I was at the gym at 5:30 this morning with my trainer. You can ask him. So, all right, let's stick on culture.
2020.
2020. What is the thing from a cultural perspective? It can be cannabis. It can be anything. Like, what are you guys looking forward to? Oh my God, Anne's eyes got
I
wide.
know, I wasn't prepared for
yes,
this.
It's like.
First of all, we also didn't get the script or the questions till 5 seconds before we walked in.
I just found out we were recording this as I walked in.
Wow.
I sent you a calendar invite. You should have known.
It was on our calendars. Yes.
So culturally, I think going bold, I think we're going to start seeing like national sports leagues actually embrace
Oh, I like
cannabis.
that one.
I think, we're going to start seeing like Major League Baseball, which already announced that they're going to no longer test their minor leaguers for cannabis. We're going to see them be more open to sponsorships.
Well, there was I'm sorry, I'm interrupting you, but there was a role, a sports partnership role at, I think it was Aurora. So like these
Yeah, with
jobs
UFC.
are now becoming mainstream. So that's really interesting.
Yeah,
Sorry, I interrupted.
I think Aurora and UFC was the first major one that we're going to see. But I think, especially like a league like the MLS, I could see jumping behind this. Just they're looking to stand out amongst the crowd. You could see the NHL do the same thing. NFL is going to have the collective bargaining agreement up, and there's a lot of momentum. It seems like that cannabis is going to become an acceptable thing, so that these players don't get fined, suspended anymore. And it seems like the league's actually open to that. So I think culturally, that's where we're going to see cannabis start to enter the mainstream conversation, is getting in through that sports avenue.
I didn't realize that there are 30 Major League Soccer teams. They're putting one in Charlotte now, right?
Yeah.
30. I thought there was like 6 teams.
They outdraw the NBA and the NHL.
Really?
On average, the average MLS game has a higher attendance than the average NBA or NHL game.
The Newark Stadium is sold out.
I went to LAFC. It was bonkers, filled to the brim, and it was an amazing experience.
Well, if they bring a team to
Welcome to
Buffalo,
the
I will support them. All Buffalo, all the time.
Yeah, nobody actually wants to play in Buffalo.
Well, Lewis, I want to pose it to you. How do you think cannabis is going to impact culturally in 2020?
I actually think it's going to be part of the Democratic platform. Whoever the candidate is, unless it's
Right now, it's table stakes for all the.
it's table stakes. I actually think it will be part of the platform. That whether it's federal legalization or states' rights when it comes to this, the real question is how much of a draw for voters will it be? I don't know. You know,
For the younger voters, like 18 to 35, I bet you.
It has only polled, one of the things that I learned when we were in Vegas doing the Marijuana Today roundup podcast was that no state had passed cannabis legislation through a public referendum and got more than like 54%. Right. So it's not like you're seeing, 60-70% vote. And I don't know how powerful the cannabis voter is. We are not a single voter block, but I do believe it's going to be part of the platform, unless it's Joe Biden or unless it's Mike Bloomberg. Please, no more old white men. Come on, we can do better. But I think it is an important thing, and I think we'll see New Jersey come online. I think that New York will get it done. And I think that Massachusetts and Maine will surprise this year with the robustness of their markets. I really do. And the other thing is, I think that we will see some sort of mainstream television show, ABC, NBC, CBS, Fox, or
There was one on Showtime called
Weeds.
No, mainstream, not that. But Weeds has got a movie coming out too. But
Really?
we'll see. Yeah, they've got a movie coming out. But I think that we'll see a mainstream, like over-the-air network, have some sort of cannabis content involved because it sells. So, all right. What about you, Phil?
You're putting me on the spot.
On the spot.
Man.
I'll go. I have one.
ooh.
I thought of one.
She's ready to order, so you can take her
I'm
order,
ready to
please.
order. I kind of want to see what the consumption cafes are going to look like, or like what.
But you live in L.A.
Yeah, and I was supposed to go to the Lowell Cafe, and I wound up being sick and I couldn't go. And it was a very.
It's
my
not the
friends
Lowell Cafe
who,
anymore.
I know. What is it now?
I don't remember.
Yeah, they changed the name, but it was kind of a mediocre experience. It was like a gee whiz cool, but it was also like they didn't have their.
Well, we
shit
went to a
really
shitty
together.
one up in San Francisco.
Yeah, and like for those of us that don't smoke, like that's a tough thing for like.
Is it just smoking all the time? Like
Yeah,
just
like
sit-
and it's
yeah.
like it's like being in a cigar bar.
Yeah.
And so I would like
A
to see
crappy
kind
cigar bar.
Yeah, like how I mean it was next to a beautiful dispensary,
Yeah.
right? So I don't know. I would like to see how that shakes out, who goes, and if they actually make money.
All right, Phil, your turn.
Oh, come on! I gave you a reprieve.
You have all this
I
time.
know, but I got intrigued. I'm like, where's this place in San Francisco?
It's I can tell you, it's called the
it's,
Barbary Coast.
Yeah, it's on my sticker.
Yeah, it was really fascinating. It was really, I mean, you were able to sit in a public place and just smoke a joint. They had bongs. They
I
had
think
all
that's
this
going to be a
stuff.
huge part of the normalization of it is, because in Vegas you can buy it, but you can't.
I was just going to say this because
I'm
I
sorry,
was
you take it.
in Vegas. I had gone to a dispensary and I was walking into my hotel, and as I was walking to the elevator, this guy goes, "I know what's in that bag. Go outside and throw it out. It's not allowed on the premises." And
That
I'm
was
like,
the Win or the Encore?
That was at the Encore,
Really?
At
Yep.
the Tower Suites there. But you can get there by
Yeah.
going through the other elevator bank. So I was like, okay, I'll go throw it out in the garbage can right out front, pal. So I walked out, took everything out, put them in my pockets,
He was loaded for bear.
threw the bag away, and I just went in through the other elevator bank. But yeah, apparently. Well, the cleaning ladies didn't care. I had it all over my room. They were just like stacking up.
Amongst other things, I'm sure.
I don't know. That was my chips. But no, Nick, I like the idea of like where this goes, with the sports teams. I think we need to see more research, right? Because you're seeing a lot of these guys like in the NHL and the NFL that are with the CTE, and it's not these guys are in bad shape and they need help. So I think you're going to see, I agree with you. I think you're going to see more of these major league sports teams start doing more research and start allowing guys to use this and not ding them for 2 games or whatever it is, depending on the league. If they use it to, help them medicate. We talked to a number of guys from sports leagues in the space, which I did run into Marvin, by the way, at in Vegas.
Did it knock you over when you ran into him? He's a big dude.
He's a big dude. But, I think, there's a lot of these guys, it's helping them out. So, let's see what these sports leagues do.
Okay. Guys, thank you.
Thank you.
I really appreciate working with you. It's been a great year. I look forward to 2020 and seeing what happens. We all have bet large parts of our career on this industry. And, up until this year, it has seemed like the smartest thing that you could possibly do. And this year has been challenging for the industry, for us as an agency. But every step that we take forward is in large part because of the 3 of you. And I really want to say thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Happy holidays.
And thanks to all of our listeners.
And
Yes.
thanks to Shay, who's behind the scenes cutting all these episodes for us.
Yes.
So.
Yes. And thanks to Shay Gunther, who...
We checked all our levels today, Shay.
We did. So
one last thing. January 9th, Cannabis Virtual Investor Conference.
We'll put a link in the show notes.
Hashtag Bill's,
which we, by the way, we
hashtag
almost
Bill's
never
Mafia.
do.
Really?
Oh, yeah. If you go back and read the show notes.
I feel like I talk about that all the time. Like, yeah, we'll put a link in the show notes.
Yeah, you're assuming that somebody's actually paying attention.
Okay.
All right.
So in 2020, we'll have more links in our show notes.
Yes. Not necessarily to what we're talking about. We're just going to put the random
Just
link
a
in
random
there.
link.
Yes, it's all, we're going to rickroll the shit out of you listeners. All right, with that, thank you very much, everybody.